Just for anyone who felt the need then to furiously write down any of those names of brochures, all of the presentations from today will be available afterwards. So you don't waste your time writing stuff down. You'll get those presentations before Christmas. Pay attention more to what's said, and you can research all of the stuff afterwards. So now we're going to jump to one of the C panels. Greg Hesse is going to come and talk to us about what C2 is doing. Over to you, Greg.
Thanks, David. Yes, I'm Greg Hesse, the convener of AU C2 for Power System Operation and Control, so completing the trio of PowerLink presenters in this session. So, I think this is, try this. Oop. Okay, there we go. So, the scope of Study Committee C2, I guess I'd like to think that it's a little bit different to a lot of the other study committees in that it's not purely about the technical. We have a very strong focus also on the human element and the institutional elements that go to secure an economic operation of the power system, and all with a overarching constraint around protecting against the risks of system disintegration or power system failure, system black, equipment damage, and above all, human injuries. Now, we don't like to publicise it, but certainly we do recognise that we're not always successful on the system disintegration protection part, and so part of our focus also is on how we rebuild the system following extreme circumstances. For those who are interested, that's a photo from the control centre at the New York ISO in upstate New York. It's an amazing place. I think they had one design criteria when they built their new control room, and that was the wallboard had to be bigger than the one in PJM. And for those who are interested... Sorry?
Is it Con Ed?
No, this is New York ISO. This is the market operator. So the Con Ed part is just that bit down the bottom end. And for those who are old enough to remember paper chart recorders, they have digital versions down the bottom of the wallboard as well. So the structure of C2, fairly conventional structure. In terms of numbers of working groups, I think what Alan presented with B2, you saw part of an extreme of large numbers of working groups. C2, we're a little more targeted and focused on our part of the world. We do a lot of joint work, so over on the right-hand side, a number of joint working groups with other study committees. Number of these are starting to reach their completion and winding up. Technical brochures have been published, and so new working groups will get launched probably in the next 12 months or so. Certainly a lot of Australian involvement in the active working groups, and in particular around our system operating performance, planning and performance. So we've got 2 Australian conveners on the remaining working groups. So Frank Kriske from SA Power Networks, looking at operational measures to mitigate fire risk. And Babek from AEMO, who has just started a new working group looking at system restoration and the ability to utilise new technologies and distributed resources in system restoration processes. Also particularly relevant for Australia is the Study Committee C2-25, chaired by Jens from Germany. This is around operational resilience. Graham talked earlier about resilience in the general sense. So this is contrasting with infrastructure resilience. So you've already built it, major investment decisions, you've got the level of redundancy you've got. On the day, how can you best operate the system to maintain resilience in the face of whatever nature or others or malicious actors are throwing at you? So that's really quite interesting work, and there's several of us from Australia who are involved with that particular working group. What we've been able to publish in the last 12 months or so, technical brochure 742 came out very late last year. That's a joint with Study Committee C4, that framework for coordinated power system stability control, a really good technical brochure. So anyone interested, and I won't steal Andrew Halley's thunder, but around that technical performance of the power system and how you actually operate and integrate it in your real-time operations to maximise your economic and secure operation of the power system is a really good technical brochure. 778, the final piece of work on the joint study committee joint with study committee C5, where we look at the interaction between power system operation and market rules and operations. A couple of articles that were published in the CIGRE Science and Engineering. One, those who have an interest in phaser monitoring unit, synchrophaser type aspects. Iceland's probably held up as the textbook example of really deploying that technology into control centres and informing real-time operations and situational awareness. So it's not simply a post-event look at what actually happened. This is actually helping control the Icelandic power system in real time. So really, again, really interesting example. Turning now to our study committee meeting this year, we met in Aalborg in conjunction with the symposium. Aalborg is a sort of a university town in the north of Denmark. The theme of the symposium was going offshore, and I suppose when I first started to look into what was going on for the symposium, I thought going offshore, offshore wind farms, that's not really so much of a thing in Australia. I mean, I won't count Tasmania as an offshore wind farm just yet. But then you actually think about, well, what are the relevance to Australia? And there really are quite a lot of linkages that you can draw from what they're having to do about offshore wind farms. Study Committee C2, we hosted 4 paper sessions, a total of 19 papers within this conference. And the first topic there around assessment and study tools for power system operations. So that's really about how can we maintain our situational awareness in the presence of all of these new, diverse, distributed, highly variable technologies that are coming onto the power system. Talk about operation of hybrid and low inertia power systems. Also, people are looking at the challenges of connecting into weak networks. We were discussing yesterday in our technical committee meeting that the world is very much focused on low inertia power systems at the moment. Australia is very much focusing also on low strength or low system strength issues. We've heard Les talk about VSC, HVDC, and how we can maximise the use of that for power system operation, and really interesting tests in being able to black start or restart your power system across a VSC type of HVDC link, and they've done live tests on a link between Norway and northern Denmark doing that. And finally, frequency control and frequency support from power electronic interface devices, again, quite topical in Australia. So while the focus may have been about offshore wind farms, the technology and the discussion and the linkages to what we confront in Australia are very real. I found it quite informative. I've got a little bit of a video at the end of the presentation just to show you actually an offshore wind farm. It's actually one of the cool things we get to do. In terms of the insights, one of the things I did notice, particularly across Europe and also North America, that transmission and system operators are investing a lot in their R&D and pilot programs. This is in the utilities themselves, and transforming themselves internally, their people, capabilities, processes, etc., to enable that increasing adoption of new grid-connected technologies. And these are really long-term, multi-year investments across multiple countries, multiple partners. So the Migrate Consortium, and Migrate stands for Massive Integration of Power Electronics, 11 different transmission authorities, 12 universities, a manufacturer, working across 5 integrated and work streams over a 4-year period. We saw in Ireland what they call their DS3, so that's delivering a sustainable and secure supply. So they had an advisory council working with them, with representatives from academia and industry across not just the island of Ireland, but also broadly in Europe. And they started in 2011 and are just getting towards the end of their market and system transformation. And I guess my perspective from at the bulk power system level, from a transmission system operator sort of level, I certainly see these other parts of the world looking at what they can do to have their power systems be able to securely host those increasing levels of power electronic connected generation. And I just observed that perhaps in Australia it seems that we're more focusing on how we connect stuff first, and then later on we try to figure out how we can operate it securely. So maybe that's a challenge for all of us to work on. And certainly the the migrate. That's just a little slide to show the extent of the geographic and institutional spread of what they're trying to do. So their focus has been how can we extend our capability of the existing power system, and then what are the technological leaps that we can take so that we can host increasing amounts of power electronic interface devices on the power system. Looking forward to Paris next year and the preferential subjects, and really what are the relevances for Australia. You look at preferential subject 1 around capabilities required for future power system operation. That's capabilities in its broadest sense. It's not just the technology, it's the people, the processes. We have working groups looking at what does the controller, the network controller of the future need to look like, what skills, aptitudes do they need to bring. We have something different in that preferential subject 3 is actually joint preferential subject with study committee C6 around system operation challenges, increasing use of distributed energy resources, and that really does reflect the changing paradigm that we're seeing on the power system, where this widespread use of DER, and how can we harness that at the bulk power system level to improve outcomes for customers. That's a bit of a smattering of what's been going on in C2 in the last 12 months or so, and hopefully our video will work. It's just a very short 30-second video that our corporate communications people at PowerLink put together. I came back with some photos and snippets of video, and they turned it into something a whole lot better than I could have hoped for, so just enjoy.
All right, so just to